The first sign that something was wrong was how calm the humans were. Across the central spiral of the galaxy, power was measured by size, noise, and fear. The larger the fleets, the louder the threats, the more respect a species received. For centuries, this rule had worked. Empires rose and fell by how well they frightened others. Meetings were filled with shouting. Agreements were forced, not earned. Humans did none of that. When the trade ring was closed to them, many expected panic. The trade ring was the main path for fuel, food shipments, and rare metals. Without it, a young spacefaring race should have suffered badly. Other species watched closely, ready to demand tribute or territory once humans weakened. But the humans did not panic. They sent one ship. It was small, clean, and unarmed by visible standards. It arrived at the edge of the ring and waited. No escort, no weapons fire, no loud broadcast, just a request for permission to speak. The request was polite. The Council of Linked Powers found this amusing. The ring was controlled by many strong species, and none of them respected humans much. Humans had joined galactic society only a few generations ago. They were known for trade, art, and careful science, not war. They smiled often. They used soft voices. Their diplomats asked questions instead of making demands. The council allowed the meeting, mostly for entertainment. The human envoy stepped into the chamber alone. He wore simple clothing and carried nothing in his hands. He bowed slightly, a gesture most species did not understand. His voice was calm, steady, and slow. He asked for access to the trade ring again. He said humans wished to continue peaceful exchange. He said humans valued cooperation and long friendship. Some council members laughed openly. Others ignored him. One leader spoke harshly and told the human to leave. Another said humans should pay higher fees. A third suggested humans should give up a few outer colonies as proof of loyalty. The human envoy listened without anger. He did not interrupt. When they finished, he nodded once. He thanked them for their time. He said humans would consider the response carefully. Then he left. No threats were made, no warning spoken, no anger shown. The council forgot about him almost immediately. That same day, far beyond the trade ring, a listening station went silent. The station was old but important. It watched a quiet stretch of space where nothing ever happened. When its signal vanished, the local command assumed a system error. Maintenance drones were sent. They never arrived. Hours later, a supply ship failed to check in. Then, another. By the time someone noticed the pattern, 6 different systems reported small problems. A navigation buoy drifted off course. A fuel depot lost pressure. A relay node rebooted without reason. None of it looked like an attack. It looked like bad luck. In human space, deep inside secured networks, quiet rooms came alive. Men and women sat before dark screens filled with moving light. No one spoke loudly. Orders were short. Confirmations were silent nods. Timelines moved forward one step at a time. No banners were raised. No public announcements made. The fleets moved without sound. They did not enter hostile space. They stayed far away, hidden behind stars and debris fields. Small probes spread out like dust, watching, listening, learning. Humans recorded everything. They learned ship routes, shift patterns, response times. They mapped how long it took for a command to notice a missing signal. They studied how leaders reacted to uncertainty. They waited. Back in the trade ring, the council continued its business. Members argued over tariffs and borders. The humans were rarely mentioned. A few joked that humans would beg again soon. Then a courier arrived late. The courier was shaken. Its ship showed signs of emergency repairs. It reported that an outer patrol group had failed to return. No distress call. No wreckage found. Just empty space. The council dismissed it. Patrols vanished sometimes. Space was dangerous. But over the next few cycles, more reports came. Mining stations lost power for minutes at a time. Defense systems reset without cause. Long-range scanners showed strange shadows that vanished when focused on. A junior analyst, young and careful, began to worry. She compared data streams from different regions. The failures followed patterns. They were not random. Someone was testing the edges. She brought her findings to her superior. He glanced at them and told her not to waste time. No known enemy had that level of control, certainly not humans. The analyst kept watching anyway. In human space, the envoy returned home. He reported the meeting exactly as it happened. No anger colored his words. No disappointment shown. A senior officer listened and asked only one question. Did they listen? The envoy said no. The officer nodded. That was enough. Human ships did not cross borders. They did not fire weapons. They did not make demands. Instead, they adjusted trade flows, rerouted supply lines, and strengthened internal production. To the galaxy, it looked like humans were adapting quietly to hardship. In truth, humans were measuring how long the galaxy could function without noticing them. Weeks passed. Then the trade ring lost a major relay. For exactly 12 seconds, all traffic froze. Ships drifted. Signals overlapped. Automated systems failed to agree on time and position. When the relay came back online, everything seemed normal again. No damage, no trace of intrusion. But 12 seconds was enough. In those 12 seconds, human probes slipped deeper than ever before. They did not steal data. They did not plant weapons. They simply watched. They learned who panicked first. They learned who gave orders and who waited. They learned which voices carried weight. The analyst finally convinced her superior to look. By then, she was shaking. She showed him the patterns, the timing, the careful gaps between failures. Someone was inside their systems. The superior reported to the council. The council laughed again, but more quietly this time. They ordered a security review. It found nothing. They ordered a show of force near human space. A small fleet moved forward, lights bright, weapons charged. The humans responded with another message. It was polite. They thanked the council for their attention. They repeated their request for peaceful access. They expressed hope for mutual understanding. The fleet waited for further orders. None came. Instead, the fleet commander reported strange readings. Power levels dipped for seconds at a time. Target locks failed briefly. Long-range sensors showed echoes where no ships existed. The commander requested permission to withdraw. The council denied it. Then the echoes moved, not closer, sideways. Around them, the fleet did not see an enemy. But every officer felt watched. In human command, a timer reached 0. A single listening station far from the trade ring powered down forever. No explosion. No debris, just silence. The analysts, now fully afraid, realized the truth. Humans were not negotiating. They were demonstrating patience. They were showing restraint so carefully that it looked like weakness. And now the galaxy was beginning to understand the first rule of human conflict. Humans did not rush. They waited. They watched. They hunted politely. The trade ring lights dimmed slightly as another relay reset. No alarm sounded. No war was declared. But somewhere in the dark between stars, the hunt had already begun. The galaxy had always believed it understood humans. They smiled. They spoke softly. They traded fairly. And they were small compared to the great fleets of older races. For centuries, other species thought this meant humans were weak. They thought humans could be pushed, bullied, or ignored. But the humans were quiet, careful, and patient in ways no one had studied properly. After the small envoy's visit to the trade ring, the alien leaders had laughed at humans again. They said humans would beg, would pay more fees, or would vanish quietly from the ring. But the humans did not panic, and they did not beg. Instead, they sent messages, polite, soft-spoken messages that asked for access to the trade routes again. They thanked the council for their attention. They said humans wished for cooperation. They offered no threats. They made no demands. Meanwhile, systems across the trade ring began to fail. At first, the failures were small. A mining station lost power for a few minutes. A supply relay rebooted without explanation. Patrol ships reported small navigation errors. Many council members called it coincidence, bad luck, or faulty equipment. But some junior officers began to notice patterns. They compared reports, timelines, and star positions, and one young analyst discovered something terrifying. The failures were connected. They were not random. Someone was observing, testing, and learning. The humans were already inside the systems, quietly, without detection. The analyst warned her superior, but he dismissed her concerns. Humans could not do this, he said. They had small ships, few weapons, and limited technology. They could not infiltrate entire systems of the trade ring. Still, she continued to watch. She mapped every small failure, every pause, every disruption. The patterns were too precise. Someone waited for moments when systems were weakest, striking just long enough to test, but never enough to destroy. In human space, the fleets prepared quietly. They moved without announcement, without fanfare, staying hidden behind asteroid fields, dark clouds of gas, and empty systems. Small drones spread out like a net, observing trade routes, defense stations, patrol schedules, and leadership patterns. Humans were careful. They did not fire weapons. They did not destroy. They watched. They learned. They waited. Then came the first major disappearance. A fleet of 4 alien warships, large and heavily armed, vanished in the middle of a patrol. Their communications cut off suddenly, and when command tried to track them, there were only faint echoes, like shadows that had disappeared into empty space. Rescue ships sent to investigate returned with no survivors. No debris, only faint radiation traces. No one knew what had happened. Panic spread slowly among the fleets, but no one wanted to admit fear. The humans did not claim responsibility. No announcement, no bragging, no warning. They continued their polite messages to the council, asking only for trade access. They wrote about friendship, cooperation, and hope. Their words were soft, almost gentle. They never raised voices. They never demanded concessions. The young analyst realized that humans were not attacking blindly. They were hunting. Carefully. Politely. They were not in a hurry. They studied every movement, every reaction. They waited for the perfect moment. They struck only when success was certain. Another disappearance followed. A supply convoy that usually traveled safely through the ring failed to arrive. Ships tracking it found it intact, undamaged, but all crews were gone. Automated systems had continued to operate as if nothing had happened. Nothing exploded. Nothing burned. The humans had taken only what they needed to learn and left the rest untouched. Panic began to spread in secret. Officers whispered about strange shadows on sensors, about sudden system resets, about patrols vanishing. Every time a fleet moved, strange disturbances appeared. Ships found themselves rerouted, systems shutting down for seconds at a time. Every small failure seemed designed to test the aliens' reactions. At the council, leaders finally noticed. They had ignored the first reports. They had laughed at the envoy. They had dismissed the analyst's warnings. Now, they could no longer ignore the pattern. A meeting was called, and humans were invited, as always, to speak politely. The council expected them to be nervous, to beg, to apologize for the problems their fleets had supposedly caused. But when the humans arrived, they were calm. They smiled. Their envoy thanked the council for their time. He spoke softly about friendship, about trade, and about cooperation. He did not mention the missing fleets, the strange failures, or the shadows in the systems. He did not apologize. The council members whispered to one another. How could humans speak so gently while fleets disappeared? How could they act so politely while the galaxy trembled around them? Some of them began to feel fear, though they did not show it. While the meeting continued, humans acted in the shadows. They had already mapped weaknesses, habits, and blind spots in the alien fleets. They had determined which patrols were predictable, which stations responded slowly, and which leaders panicked first. Humans were not reckless, not violent, and not greedy. They were precise, patient, and careful. A second human envoy, this one commanding a hidden fleet, made a quiet report. He spoke only to the central human command. He did not announce anything to the galaxy. He reported on alien reactions, on patrol patterns, on system failures. Every move had been recorded, analyzed, and measured. Humans would wait until the right moment, strike only when necessary, and leave no unnecessary damage. Back at the council, a minor panic began to spread. One senior officer realized that patrol ships that vanished were not lost to accidents. They were removed carefully, without noise, without aggression, without warning. Systems had failed just enough to test reactions. Nothing had been destroyed unnecessarily. Humans were not just clever. They were patient hunters. For the first time, a species in the galaxy truly felt the weight of human calculation. They had assumed weakness where there was strategy. They had assumed fear where there was control. The analyst, still observing from her small station, connected the final dots. Every system failure, every lost ship, every shadow in the sensors, all of it traced back to careful observation. Humans were waiting for the right moment. They were learning. They were preparing. The Council tried to respond with force. A small fleet was sent towards the outer edges of human space. Weapons charged, lights blazing, signals loud. The humans responded politely with a message thanking them for their attention and repeating the desire for peaceful trade. The fleet commander reported anomalies in real time. Power levels dropped for seconds at a time. Targeting systems failed briefly. Navigation relays echoed with phantom signals. The fleet could not understand what was happening. The humans did not attack openly. They did not engage. They simply observed. They allowed the fleets to move into patterns, allowed them to reveal weaknesses, allowed them to demonstrate habits. Every mistake the alien fleet made was quietly recorded. Every hesitation, every panic, every miscommunication, every overreaction, it was stored. By the end of the cycle, the Council was forced to acknowledge one frightening truth. Humans were not negotiating. Humans were not begging. Humans were learning, waiting, and hunting politely. The young analyst whispered her conclusion to her superior, almost afraid to speak aloud. The galaxy had underestimated humans. It had assumed weakness. It had assumed simplicity, but humans were calculating, precise, and patient. They waited for the right moment, struck only when success was certain, and did not waste effort on violence without purpose. The fleet commander reported one final anomaly before withdrawing. A single listening station in the outer ring, far from any human colony, had powered down completely. No explosion. No trace. Nothing. The fleet could not determine if it was a system error, sabotage, or something else entirely. In human space, the commander gave one order. Continue observing. Wait. Record. Learn. The hunt had begun. The galaxy did not notice yet, but humans were already moving. The trade ring resumed operations, almost normal. Ships moved as usual. Communication relays transmitted messages. Patrols passed without incident. Nothing appeared different, but everything had changed. The galaxy had begun to understand a rule it had never faced before. Humans did not rush. Humans did not panic. Humans did not negotiate in fear. They waited. They learned. And when the time was right, they hunted politely. The first shadow of fear had passed through the Council. They did not know it yet, but the game had begun. And humans, as always, played quietly, carefully, and politely. The galaxy had always assumed that humans were weak. They smiled, spoke softly, and traded fairly. Most species had never seen humans fight, and they believed that humans could be pushed, bullied, or ignored. But humans were patient. They waited, they watched, and they learned. The first two disappearances of fleets and the strange system failures had begun to shift fear across the trade ring. Now, the reality of human precision became impossible to ignore. In the neutral system of Meraxis, An emergency council had been called. Representatives of the trade ring, the neighboring fleets, and some independent species gathered to discuss the human problem. The humans arrived as always. Their ships were small, unarmed in appearance, and they came alone to the meeting. They did not guard themselves with fleets, and they did not demand special treatment. They were calm. They smiled. Their voices were soft. The alien leaders expected fear. They expected negotiation, apology, or bribery. Instead, the human envoy spoke of friendship, trade, and cooperation. He thanked the council for their time and for considering peaceful solutions. He made no threats. He demanded nothing. He did not mention the fleets that had vanished or the failures of the systems. The council members whispered among themselves. How could humans speak so calmly while their fleets disappeared? How could they be so polite while the galaxy began to tremble? While the council talked, human ships were already in place. Not openly attacking, not even in view of the other fleets, but positioned to watch, to learn, and to record. Small drones spread quietly across the neutral systems. They did not make noise. They did not trigger alarms. They observed. They measured every reaction, every hesitation, every command decision. Humans studied the galaxy as carefully as a predator studies its prey, but without ever showing aggression. Hours passed. Then one of the largest fleets in the region disappeared. It was not attacked openly. No explosions, no distress calls, no signals. The fleet simply ceased to exist. Later, what remained were only empty coordinates and a faint energy signature that could not be traced to a weapon or technology known to any species. Panic spread quietly. Officers whispered about the strange events, about shadows on their sensors, about systems failing just long enough to confuse them. No one knew how to respond. The humans did not celebrate. They sent another polite message. They requested continued cooperation. They repeated their desire for trade. They offered no explanations. The galaxy began to understand that humans did not need to announce their actions to gain results. Meanwhile, more fleets vanished. A convoy carrying supplies through a busy trade route disappeared without a trace. Automated systems continued to function. Sensors detected nothing unusual. A station sent a team to investigate, and the team returned with no answers, no debris, no survivors. Only faint energy patterns, barely perceptible. The young analyst, now increasingly alarmed, connected the pieces. Every disappearance, every system failure, every shadow on the sensors followed a pattern. Humans had learned every weakness, every predictable routine. They waited for the right moment, struck only when success was certain, and left the rest untouched. No one had realized that the quiet humans were not just careful, they were precise hunters.
The council attempted to respond with force.
A fleet of heavily armed ships moved toward human space. Weapons were armed. Lights were blazing. Signals were loud. Humans sent their usual polite message thanking the council for their attention and asking for peaceful cooperation. The fleet commander reported anomalies almost immediately. Power dropped for seconds at a time. Targeting systems failed. Navigation systems reported phantom signals. The fleet could not determine what was happening. The humans did not fire a single shot. They did not engage. They simply waited. Every movement, every decision, every panic reaction was recorded. They allowed the fleets to reveal their weaknesses, habits, and blind spots. Every error the alien fleets made was carefully documented. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was unnecessary. The young analyst realized that humans were teaching the galaxy a lesson. Not through aggression, not through violence, but through patience, observation, and careful action. They had waited until the moment was perfect. They had struck only when success was guaranteed, and they had left no chaos beyond what was necessary to learn. The humans had not pursued them openly. They had not fired. The galaxy was left shaken. Officers whispered about the lessons learned from silence. No one had realized that humans could strike without warning, without noise, and with complete control. Another disappearance occurred. A station in the outer ring, normally heavily guarded, lost contact with its fleet. No alarm sounded. No distress calls were made. The ships simply vanished. Command tried to respond, but the humans had already recorded the reaction patterns, every decision made and every flaw revealed. The council members began to fear. They could no longer ignore the humans. They could no longer laugh at their calm words or soft smiles. Humans were not negotiating. Humans were not weak. They were patient hunters who understood the value of restraint, the power of observation, and the perfection of timing. The analysts presented her findings again, now with evidence that could not be ignored. Patterns, disappearances, and system anomalies pointed to one conclusion: humans were in control. The galaxy had not noticed the hunt beginning, but now it could not deny it. Humans continued to send polite messages. They requested trade. They offered friendship. They showed no anger, no aggression, and no panic. The galaxy began to realize that the human way was different. They did not rush. They did not make noise. They did not fight for show. They waited. They learned. And they acted only when the moment was right. The council finally understood something that had been invisible until now. Humans were not just careful and polite. They were precise, patient, and deadly when necessary. They had turned the rules of the galaxy upside down. Fear replaced arrogance. Silence replaced laughter. The galaxy finally understood that humans did not negotiate. They hunted politely. The young analyst, still watching, whispered to herself, afraid to speak aloud. The humans had changed the game. No one could see them clearly. No one could predict their next move. And yet, every fleet, every patrol, every station had already revealed its weaknesses. Humans were patient, quiet, and invisible hunters. The outer trade ring returned to normal appearance. Ships moved as if nothing had happened. Communication relays functioned normally. Patrols passed without incident. But the galaxy had already changed. Humans had shown that the quietest, calmest, and softest words could hide the sharpest observation, the most careful strategy, and the deadliest precision. Every system, every fleet, and every leader had been tested without knowing it. The galaxy had learned a truth that it could not unlearn. Humans did not rush. Humans did not panic. Humans did not negotiate out of fear. They waited, they watched, and when the moment was right, they hunted politely. And now, with the council shaken and fleets hesitant, humans had the advantage. They controlled information, timing, and observation. They acted only when certain. And the galaxy, for the first time, realized that humans were not simple traders or weak diplomats. They were patient predators, polite hunters, and invisible masters of strategy. No one knew what would happen next. But every species in the trade ring, every fleet commander, and every officer began to change the way they thought. The game had begun. The humans were in control. The galaxy had seen the first shadow of true human patience, and it would never forget it. The galaxy had begun to understand that humans were not what they seemed. They smiled. They spoke softly. They traded fairly. They appeared small and weak, but the events in the trade ring had proven the opposite. Humans did not panic. They did not rush. They did not negotiate out of fear. They waited. They watched. And they struck only when the moment was perfect. The trade ring had been shaken. Fleets vanished. Convoys disappeared. Systems failed just long enough to test reactions. Shadowed anomalies appeared on sensors that no one could explain. The council members whispered nervously among themselves. They had underestimated humans for centuries, and now fear was spreading quietly. In response, the council ordered a full military mobilization. Fleets from every allied species gathered at the edges of human space. Lights flashed. Weapons were armed. Signal arrays broadcasted warnings. Leaders spoke harshly in command channels, demanding explanations from the humans. Some wanted to strike immediately. Others demanded negotiations before any attack. The humans responded, as always, with calm words. Their envoy appeared at the council chamber of the neutral system, dressed simply and carrying nothing. He bowed slightly and spoke softly. He thanked the council for considering peaceful solutions. He expressed hope for cooperation. He asked politely for continued trade access. No mention was made of fleets that had vanished. No threats were given. No fear was shown. The council members, who had been expecting panic or begging, felt uneasy. Their arrogance faltered. The human envoy left without anger, without complaint, and without a hint of concern. Meanwhile, hidden fleets of humans moved quietly. They did not enter council space openly. They stayed behind asteroids, gas clouds, and dark systems. Drones spread out silently, observing fleets, recording patrol patterns, and watching how stations responded to emergencies. Humans did not attack. They learned. They waited. They recorded every reaction, every hesitation, every mistake. The first major test came when the Council fleet attempted a show of force near the edge of human space. Hundreds of warships advanced with weapons ready, lights bright, and communication channels full of static warnings. Sensors detected sudden power drops in their own ships. Targeting systems failed briefly. Navigation relays returned phantom signals. No enemy ships appeared. The fleet commander reported confusion among the officers. No one knew why systems were failing, but the humans were already watching every reaction. Inhuman space commanders recorded it all. They analyzed every decision made by the alien fleet. They mapped which officers panicked first. They noted who hesitated. They studied how quickly orders were given and followed. No aggressive moves were taken. No damage was done. Only observation. Patience. Learning. The Council attempted to respond again, sending scouts and strike groups deeper into human territory. Each time the humans recorded reactions and waited. Their polite messages repeated. Humans desired friendship. They wished for trade. They offered no threats, no demands, no anger. But every fleet that approached suffered anomalies. Shadows on sensors, sudden system failures, missing crews. No one knew that the humans were teaching them a lesson. Back at the Council, tension grew. Officers whispered about patterns they could not explain. They compared reports of lost ships and system failures. Every disappearance was deliberate, precise, and carefully measured. The humans had not rushed. They had not attacked without reason. They had tested, studied, and observed. They were hunters who did not reveal their strength. Then came the final demonstration. A Council fleet of 60 warships moved toward human territory in full formation. The humans observed quietly. Their drones spread out in a wide perimeter. As the fleet approached, power systems dropped. Targeting arrays failed, and communication channels flickered. No explosions occurred. No weapons were fired. The fleet commander reported extreme confusion and fear among officers. At the same time, human ships quietly surrounded the Council fleet, appearing only in sensors for split seconds. Every officer was tracked. Every decision was recorded. Every mistake was noted. When the fleet tried to attack, systems failed at the most critical moments. The humans never fired a shot, yet the Council fleet was immobilized without harm. The human envoy sent a final message to the Council. It was calm and polite. He thanked them for considering trade and friendship. He offered no threats. He repeated that humans preferred peace. He reminded the Council that humans waited, observed, and acted only when necessary. The Council members understood. Too late. The humans had complete control. They could disable fleets without destroying them. They could observe, record, and decide the exact moment to act. Fear replaced arrogance. Silence replaced confidence. The young analyst, still watching patterns from her station, realized that every fleet had been taught a lesson without ever firing a shot. Humans had demonstrated power in the quietest way possible. They had shown that patience, observation, and careful timing were far more dangerous than open war. For the first time, the Council realized the full truth. Humans did not negotiate in fear. They did not panic. They waited. They observed. And when the time was perfect, they hunted. politely. The fleets withdrew, shaken but intact. No one wanted to test the humans further. The council called off aggressive operations. Trade continued, but every officer, every commander, and every leader now understood that humans were not weak. They were patient, precise, and deadly when necessary. Humans restored systems and trade routes. They released captured crews without condition. They left behind a simple message. They would talk first, wait patiently, and act only when forced. The galaxy had learned the final lesson. Humans smiled. They spoke softly. They traded fairly. They did not panic. They waited. They observed. And they hunted politely. And the galaxy would never underestimate them again. The galaxy had changed. The trade ring, once full of arrogance, laughter, and endless arguments, was now quiet. Fleets moved carefully. Leaders whispered in private. Every species, from the smallest traders to the largest warships, had begun to understand the truth about humans. They were not weak. They were not naive. They were hunters, patient and polite, precise and careful. After the council fleets withdrew, humans restored the systems they had observed and controlled. Lost stations were repaired, relays restored, and patrols returned. Nothing was broken that did not need repair. No lives were wasted unnecessarily. Ships that had vanished appeared quietly, crewed and intact, with no damage. The council, once full of pride, called an emergency meeting to discuss what had happened. Leaders spoke in low voices, careful to not alarm one another. Some refused to admit fear, but everyone knew it was there. They spoke of the strange anomalies in their fleets, the sudden failures of systems, and the perfect timing of every disappearance. Every officer realized that the humans had studied them carefully. They had tested reactions, learned weaknesses, and yet had not acted aggressively. Humans sent a message to the council, as always polite and calm. They thanked the leaders for listening, for considering trade, and for maintaining peace. They offered friendship. They repeated their desire for mutual cooperation. They did not brag. They did not threaten. They did not demand. They simply spoke softly, with confidence in their own precision and patience. The young analyst, still watching data streams from her station, realized that the humans had done something no species had ever done before. They had taught a lesson without firing a shot. They had tested, learned, and demonstrated power without violence. Every fleet, every patrol, every officer had revealed their habits, weaknesses, and reactions, and humans had recorded it all. Across the galaxy, other species began to adjust. Trade routes were reconsidered. Patrols were more cautious. Leaders waited before giving orders. No one acted without thinking. The presence of humans changed behavior without open conflict. They had proven that control, patience, and observation could be more powerful than force. Humans did not rush to occupy territory or demand tribute. They did not attack fleets or burn stations. They acted only when necessary, and always politely. This shocked the galaxy. Many species had expected aggression, anger, or panic. They found none. Instead, humans waited. They observed. They hunted only when the moment was perfect. The council finally acknowledged what everyone had feared in secret. Humans were not negotiators in the way the galaxy had always understood. Humans were hunters, polite and careful. They were precise. They acted only when needed. They controlled information, timing, and action with a patience no species had ever matched. Trade resumed, but with new understanding. Every species approached humans with caution, respect, and careful thought. Every fleet commander considered how humans might observe and learn from every decision. No one made a move without thinking. Humans had changed the rules. They had shown that power could be quiet, precise, and invisible until it acted. Human fleets returned to home systems. Crews rested. Systems were maintained. No celebration was needed. There was no need. The galaxy already understood. Humans had spoken softly, acted carefully, and demonstrated that patience was their strength. The galaxy had seen the lesson. Leaders of other species began to tell their officers the same words. Do not underestimate humans. They are patient. They are polite. They hunt only when the moment is right. Every decision, every move, every action is measured. Do not act in anger. Do not rush. Do not assume weakness. The young analyst, still observing, realized that the galaxy had changed forever. Humans had not attacked recklessly. They had not used force unnecessarily. They had taught respect quietly, through careful observation and precision action. No species would ever view humans the same way again. Humans smiled. They spoke softly. They traded fairly. They waited patiently. And they hunted politely when the moment was right. For the first time, the galaxy had truly understood humans. And the lesson was permanent. Even in the quietest corners of space, fleets moved with care, leaders made thoughtful decisions, and every species remembered what had happened. Humans did not negotiate in fear. Humans did not panic. Humans observed, learned, and acted only when necessary. The galaxy had learned humility. The galaxy had learned caution. The galaxy had learned that humans, with soft words and quiet patience, were predators who waited for the perfect moment. No one would forget. No one could ignore it. The humans had shown the way. They had changed the rules. They had restored peace, yet taught a lesson of power that would last for generations. Trade continued. Systems operated. Patrols moved. But everywhere, leaders remembered. Humans were polite hunters, precise, patient, and unstoppable when the moment was right, and the galaxy would never make the mistake of underestimating them again.